Picture a man named Robert. Every morning, without fail, he wakes up at the same time, makes the same coffee, walks to the same car, and pulls out of his driveway at exactly the same minute. He does not take the highway, even though it would save him 4 minutes. He does not try the new road they finished building last spring. He takes his road, the one he has always taken, the one he knows by heart, every turn, every pothole, every stoplight. He knows exactly when the light at the corner of Elm and Fifth turns green. He knows which house has the dog that runs to the fence every Tuesday. He knows where the road dips slightly before the old bakery. To most people watching from the outside, this looks like habit. Like routine, like someone who simply never thought to try something different. But the psychology behind this behavior is far more complex, far more human, and far more revealing than it first appears. People who drive the same route every single day are not boring. They are not unimaginative. They are not stuck. What they are doing is something deeply rooted in how the human brain is wired, how the nervous system seeks safety, and how identity gets quietly built through the small, repeated choices we make every single day of our lives. To understand this, it helps to start with the brain itself. The human brain is an efficiency machine. It is constantly looking for ways to conserve energy, to automate what can be automated, and to free up cognitive resources for things that genuinely require attention. Neuroscientists call this process automaticity. When a behavior is repeated enough times under consistent conditions, the brain shifts its processing of that behavior from the prefrontal cortex, where conscious decision-making happens, to the basal ganglia, a deeper structure associated with habit formation. In simple terms, the route stops being a decision and becomes a program. The body navigates it almost on its own, while the mind is free to do something else entirely. This is not laziness, this is sophistication. The brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. By automating the familiar, it preserves mental bandwidth for novelty, for problems, for creativity. Many people who drive the same route every day report that their most productive thinking happens during that drive. Ideas arrive, problems untangle, conversations they need to have begin forming in their minds. The route is not just transportation. It is a moving thinking space, a daily ritual of mental freedom disguised as repetition. There is a woman named Claire who has driven the same 12-minute route to her office for 9 years. She is a graphic designer. She has spoken about how her best creative ideas almost always arrive somewhere between the second stoplight and the underpass near the river. She says she tried switching routes twice. Both times the ideas stopped coming. She went back to her original road and they returned. What Claire experienced without knowing it was the psychological concept of environmental cueing. The brain learns to associate specific environments with specific mental states. Her route had become, through years of repetition, a reliable trigger for her creative mind. Changing the route disrupted the cue and disrupted the state that followed. This relationship between environment and mental state is well documented in behavioral psychology. The places we move through regularly become emotionally coded. They carry meaning we are not always consciously aware of. A particular stretch of road can signal the transition from home life to work life. A familiar bridge can mark the moment the mind begins to settle. A certain bend in the road can feel, without any logical reason, like safety. These are not irrational responses. They are the product of thousands of repetitions, slowly teaching the nervous system what to expect and how to prepare. And this connects directly to one of the most fundamental human psychological needs, the need for predictability. Psychologists who study stress and anxiety consistently find that uncertainty is among the most powerful triggers of psychological distress. Not necessarily danger itself, but the unknown quality of a situation. When everything around a person feels unpredictable, chaotic, or outside their control, the nervous system enters a low-level state of alert that is exhausting to sustain over time. The familiar route counters this. It is a guaranteed pocket of predictability in a day that might hold none. It is 30 minutes of the world behaving exactly as expected. The brain exhales. There is a man named James who works in a volatile industry where layoffs happen without warning, where projects collapse, and where his job security has never felt certain. He has driven the same route to work for 6 years. He says he never thought much about it until his wife pointed it out. When he actually reflected on it, he admitted that the drive felt like the one part of his morning he could fully trust. He knew what was coming. He knew the timing. He knew the sounds and the sights. In a working life defined by unpredictability, that route was his anchor. That small, quiet ritual was doing something enormous for his psychological stability without him ever realizing it. This speaks to the deeper psychology of ritual itself. Human beings across every culture and throughout all of recorded history have constructed rituals. Morning rituals, seasonal rituals, rituals around food and work and transition. Psychologists studying ritual behavior find that the specific content of a ritual matters far less than its consistency. It is the repetition itself that carries the psychological power. Repetition signals to the nervous system that the world is ordered, that time has structure, that the person moving through it has agency and continuity. The same route driven every morning is a secular ritual. It marks the start of the day. It creates a boundary between what came before and what comes next. It is a small ceremony of transition that most people perform without ever calling it that. There's also a deeply personal identity dimension to this behavior that deserves attention. Identity is not just about who a person believes themselves to be. It is also about the patterns they enact, the choices they repeat, the environments they return to. Every time Robert takes his road instead of the new one, he is quietly affirming something about himself, that he is a person of consistency, that he values the known. That reliability is part of who he is. These repeated choices accumulate into a sense of self that feels stable and coherent over time. Psychologists call this narrative identity, the story a person tells themselves about who they are, built from the patterns of their daily life. Changing a deeply established route can feel surprisingly emotional for exactly this reason. It is not just logistical, it touches something in the self-concept. People who are forced to change their commute due to road closures or moves often describe a period of genuine disorientation, a mild but real sense of loss. What they are mourning, without always knowing it, is not just the road. It is the version of themselves that road helped them maintain every single morning. The nostalgia element is woven through this behavior as well. Familiar routes often carry accumulated emotional memory. The corner where a person once saw something that made them laugh. The stretch of road they were driving when they got the phone call that changed everything. The light where they used to wait while listening to a specific song during a specific period of their life. These associations are largely unconscious, but they are present. The route carries a kind of personal history that makes it feel meaningful in ways that are hard to articulate. To drive it is to briefly move through layers of one's own story. Researchers studying habit and well-being have found something that might seem counterintuitive. People who maintain strong daily routines, including consistent commute patterns, tend to report higher levels of subjective well-being than those whose days are highly variable. This is not because routine eliminates joy or adventure. It is because a stable foundation of predictable behavior actually frees people to be more present, more engaged, and more capable of genuine enjoyment during unstructured time. The routine holds the structure so the person does not have to. The mind that does not need to spend energy managing constant novelty has more energy available for everything else. And yet there is a tension worth acknowledging. The same psychological forces that make the familiar route comforting can, in certain individuals and under certain conditions, tip into rigidity. When the familiar becomes not just preferred but required, when deviation causes genuine anxiety rather than mild discomfort, the behavior starts to reflect something different. Psychologists draw a careful distinction between adaptive routine and compulsive repetition. For most people who drive the same route every day, the behavior is flexible at its core even if consistent in practice. They could take another road, they simply choose not to. That choice matters enormously. What the daily route ultimately reveals is that human beings are creatures of meaning as much as creatures of reason. Robert does not take his road because he has calculated it to be the most efficient. He takes it because it is his, because it starts his day in a way that feels right, in a way that grounds him in something familiar and continuous before the world asks him to be flexible and adaptive and endlessly responsive. There is wisdom in that, not weakness. The people who drive the same route every single day are quietly doing something the rest of the world rarely stops to appreciate. They are building a life with texture and continuity. They are creating small but reliable moments of peace inside days that are anything but guaranteed. They are reminding themselves, one familiar turn at a time, that they are still here, still moving, still the same person who has traveled this road before and will travel it again. In a world that constantly demands reinvention, there is something quietly radical about choosing the known. About trusting the road you already understand. About finding, in the most ordinary repetition, something that genuinely feels like home.